Hi everybody, I'm Ryan, and today we're going to talk about 5-color Enigmatic Incarnation, which is my favorite deck in Pioneer. It is so much fun to play. We're going to talk about the card choices, any combos and stuff, and weird things in the deck, and the overall strategy of the deck, so let's jump into it. So this is 5-color Enigmatic Incarnation, and the first thing you need to understand about this deck is that there are 2 major combos happening. The first combo is the namesake of the deck, Enigmatic Incarnation, which is a 4-mana enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice another enchantment. If you do, search your library for a creature card with mana value equal to 1 plus the sacrificed enchantment's mana value, put that onto the battlefield, then shuffle. So you can combo this with basically any enchantment in the deck. So for example, if you sacrifice a Nowhere to Run or an Up the Beanstalk, you can grab Kutziel's Flanker, Skyclave Apparition, or Zur. If you sacrifice an Overlord of the Hauntwood, you can grab a Linvala or an Overlord of the Boreal Bilges. If you sacrifice a Leyline Binding or Overlord of the Boreal Bilges, you can grab a Overlord of the Mistmoors or an Atraxa. And this is extremely powerful, especially if the enchantments are just sitting on the battlefield, having already done their thing and not really doing anything else. It allows us to totally toolbox our deck, which is very cool. The other combo in our deck is centered around Zur Eternal Schemer. Zur Eternal Schemer is a 3-mana 1/4 with flying. Enchantment creatures you control have Death Touch, Lifelink, and Hexproof. And you can pay 2 mana, 1 white, 1 generic, to have target non-aura enchantment you control become a creature in addition to its other types, and has base power and toughness equal to its mana value. So this is already good in a deck with a lot of enchantments, right? You can man up an Enigmatic, get for a 4/4, man up one of these for a 2/2, man up a Leyline Binding for a 6/6, but it's especially good alongside the Overlords for 2 reasons. The first reason, and maybe the obvious reason, is they are enchantment creatures in and of themselves. And so if you just have an Overlord and are attacking with an Overlord, it has Death Touch, Lifelink, and Hexproof, which is excellent. The less obvious reason, and the very, very cool reason, is if you impend any of these Overlords, they are not creatures, but they are enchantments. They have done their thing. So you can pay the 2 mana on Zur to make an impended Overlord an enchantment. So let's say you do it to Overlord of the Hauntwoods. Say you impend Overlord, get your 4th land, untap, play your 5th land, play Zur, man up Overlord of the Hauntwoods. It is now a 5/5, even though the creature is a 6/5. Because it was manned up with Zur, it is now a 5/5 with Death Touch, Lifelink, and Hexproof. And it says nothing about while it's impended that it doesn't have the other text on the card. So when it attacks, it still triggers the text on the card. That is same true with drawing cards off of Flood Pits and getting 2 insects with Mistmoors, even if it is still impended, which is absolutely absurd. Speaking of the Overlords, to talk about each of these cards as, individually, Overlord of the Flood Pits, you can impend for 3 or play for 5 as a 5/3 with flying. And when it enters, again, even if you impend it or attacks, draw 2 cards and discard a card. Very good for filtering out bad cards, because unfortunately we have to play a lot of bad cards because we're a combo deck. Overlord of the Hauntwoods is a 5-mana 6/5 with impending 4. And when it enters or attacks, create a tapped colorless land token named Everywhere. That is every basic land type. And Overlord of the Mistmoors is a 7-mana 6/6 with impending 4. When Overlord of the Mistmoors enters or attacks, create 2 2/1 white insect creature tokens with flying. All these cards very good in and of themselves, even better with Zur, and even extra better with Enigmatic Incarnation. So let's talk about all the other cards in the deck that have less to do with the combo and why we're playing these cards. Playing 4 Fatal Push, we're playing black anyway because of Zur, and this deck is a little susceptible to aggressive decks, even if Zur gives lifelink, so it's important to play the Fatal Push to stop those aggressive strategies. Same thing with Nowhere to Run. The cool part about Nowhere to Run as well, though, is yes, it has that additional, creatures your opponent control, don't have hexproof and ward, basically, but it also kills a creature, and also it isn't really doing anything on just sitting on the battlefield, so it's really easy to sacrifice to Enigmatic Incarnation to grab one of these 3-drops. Play for Up the Beanstalk. Obviously, the cool combo thing that's happening with Up the Beanstalk is, it draws a card when it enters, but also if you impend any of the Overlords or cast Leyline Binding for 1 mana, even though it says 5 mana, you will still draw a card off of Up the Beanstalk, even if you're only paying 3 mana for Overlord of the Huntwood. So a really good start is like turn 2 Up the Beanstalk, turn 3 Impend Overlord, draw a card, get an extra land, go. And we're playing 4 Vanishing Verse. Vanishing Verse is excellent in the mirror match and is just very good in Pioneer at the moment, and just like a pretty unconditional removal spell. As far as our 3-drops go, they are mostly targets for our 2-drops. So as far as our toolbox cards, we have Kutziel's Flanker, 3 mana, 3/1. That does a little bit of everything. It's good graveyard hate we're able to play in the main deck because we can search it up. You know, it's decent against aggro. He's gained 2 life, scry 2, and the last one's fine against board wipes. I don't think I've ever used the first mode on Kutziel's Flanker, to be totally honest with you. Skyclave Apparition is decent removal. Being able to exile a permanent 4 or less, and then when it leaves the battlefield, they get a Excise Spool Illusion creature token where X the mana value of the exiled card. And they're playing 4 Zur, which we also very often search up by sacrificing these enchantments, but we've already talked about the Zur and why we're playing it in the combos. I talked about Enigmatic Incarnation as well as the Overlords. We're playing 4 Leyline Binding. Leyline Binding, we're playing 5 colors anyway. We're a 4-color deck, but everywhere off of Overlord of the Huntwoods is every basic land type, so it can make, give us the red mana for Leyline Binding. So often costs 2, sometimes costs 1, and it's just an O-ring effect with flash. It's very, very good. Also triggers off the Beanstalk and everything. We're playing a Linvala the Preserver. Linvala the Preserver is a target for sacrificing one of these 5 mana Overlords. 6 mana, 5/5 with flying. When Linvala the Preserver enters, if an opponent has more life than you gain 5 life. When it enters, if an opponent controls more creatures than you, get a 3/3 white green angel creature token. So it's a way to catch up, because remember, we're a little susceptible and a little slow compared to aggro decks. And Overlord of the Boreal Villages is a 6 mana, 5/5 with impending 4. When it enters or attacks, it deals 4 damage to any target. It's really hard for us to cast this besides off of Cavern of Souls and off of Overlord of the Huntwoods, which is why we're only paying 1 to grab off of an Enigmatic Incarnation. I've already talked about Overlord of the Mistmoors. So Atraxa is pretty much a game ender. Sacrificing an Overlord of the Boreal Villages or a Leyline Binding is a 7 mana 7/7 with Flying, Vigilance, Death Touch, Lifelink. And when it enters, reveal the top 10 cards of your library. For each card type, you may put a card of that type from among the revealed cards into your hand and put the rest in the bottom of your library random order. Very often this draws like 4 cards, sometimes 5 cards, is absolutely disgusting and very often ends the game because it also is a threat in and of itself and is very, very, very good at blocking. As far as the sideboard goes, the first thing I wanted to mention that I think is a little obvious at this point that I'm surprised I didn't mention before is this is a Yorion deck, which means we play 20 more cards in the main deck. And the reason it's a Yorion deck is because it combos insanely well with an enchantment deck. For example, we can bounce Nowhere the Run to give an extra -3/-3 and extra removal, but also is especially good alongside the Overlords, because if we have an impended Overlord and we bounce it with Yorion, it comes back as not impended, still triggers the Overlord trigger, but it comes back just as the creature, which is really game ending very, very, very often. We're playing 4 Thoughtseize for combo decks and decks that are good at neutering what we do, control decks, whatever. Playing 2 Rest in Peace, decent enchantment, but also graveyard hate. 1 Archon of Emeria to be able to throw into the 3-drop slot to tutor out for these combo decks and whatnot. 4 Knockout Blow, because like I said, it is a very, very tough matchup, is the red aggressive deck is. We're playing 1 Elishnorn, Mother of Machines, very good against the mirror match, but also very good in our deck because a lot of these things have enter the battlefield abilities I can trigger twice. 1 Thought Distortion, again, for really anything that plays a lot of instant sorceries that the game goes long. And 1 Rurik Thar the Unbowed, very good against these decks that play a lot of non-creature spells that we can tutor out in the 6-drop slot. There you have 5-color Enigmatic Incarnation. If you liked this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. Check me out on social medias. Links are above me and in the description. And as always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.